up your engine! Now here's a very interesting car. A 2002 Ford Focus Svt. The special vehicle and technology version of the Ford Focus. Now they didn't make that many of these. They made like 4,788 of these. They're not that easy to find. They weren't that big popular-wise in the United States. In Europe, especially in England, the English love these things. And why, might you ask, do the English love these things? Because they like small, powerful vehicles. For years, Fords were the biggest selling cars in England, and this car has a lot of English history in it. As we check under the hood, this Svt engine was developed in conjunction with Cosworth Engineering, a British company that was founded in 1958. They specialize in racing applications. They're in England now. They're in Indianapolis. They're also in Michigan and North Carolina. So it's a big British-American cooperation here. And for ages, they made small engines, go fast, and be reliable. Now, the original 2002 Focus had a whopping 110 horsepower. It wasn't that fast. This baby's been bumped up to 107. And you might ask, okay, they bumped it up, but do they last? Well, let's check it out. See if this thing even starts. Let's check it out. Starts right up. And this one's got 157,000 miles. Doesn't sound bad at all. Now it is a Ford, so the brake light's on, the ABS light's on, the check engine light is on. Now the door light's on because the door's open. Okay, that's gone now. But it's still running good. And this being a factory setup, still got both the oil temperature and the oil pressure gauge. Got the original 6-disc CD player in this baby. Check it out. The heat still works. I wonder if the AC does. But you know, the AC does too. It's got a 6-speed standard transmission. And interesting enough, it's the same transmission that's in the Cooper Mini S, the racing version. And really, it's probably the best part of the Cooper, that particular transmission. The rest of the car, not so good. But the transmission, that's pretty top notch. With all this English technology that's hybrid, the English tend to love these cars. They were a big hit, their version in England, because they like small cars. They had a lot of horsepower. Gasoline cost a lot more there. They didn't want to be driving big American V8s that got 3 miles a gallon driving like maniacs. You can get 31 miles a gallon if you drive this thing conservatively. Mind you, most people aren't going to drive them conservatively. If you're on a trip and you're going 75 miles an hour, you can easily get 31 miles a gallon gas mileage. Try that with a big monster American V8. That just isn't going to happen. Now, if you're ever looking at one of these things and you want one that's going to hold its value, you want stock. And in the case of this one, a lot of guys modified the heck out of them. Unfortunately, the more they modified them as they age, the value actually goes down. People want stock stuff. And in this case, if you look under here, you can barely see it. Still got those stock tubular headers. This was a very well-designed car. Now, little cars never really made it big in the United States. They were very popular in England. And since this one is not rusty, you always have to worry about them. They will be rust buckets. If you find one in Chicago, New York City, Syracuse, they'll probably be rusted to pieces and they wouldn't be worth 5 cents. So as we look under, and here's something to notice, the rocker arms are plastic, so they won't rust. So you generally aren't going to see any rust on here. What you want to check is the frame. And in this case, it is solid. There is no rust on this thing whatsoever, which is a great thing. Now, see here on the fender, well, you can see this has been chipped, but it's plastic. So it's just chipped, you can repaint it. If this was metal, it would have all rusted from the chip, but plastic, of course, doesn't rust. You know, it's for a little car, it's got pretty wide tires. Well, that was the design of the Svt, so it could handle well. Now, for the life of me, I don't know why they call them 3 doors. They got 2 doors, and they got a little trunky thing. But for some reason, they decided to call this a door. So, technically, it's a 3-door car. But as you can see when you look inside, there's actually a decent amount of room in the back. And then you got a nice little trunk. And of course, the practicality of the car. Look at all the space you can have if you want to take the headrests off. A lot of carrying space. You open up the trunk, old school with a key here. You can see there's a lot of space in here. Hey, if there's any Englishmen out there watching this video, I'm sure there's a few. Got fans in England. You'd love to get a car like this with a Tennessee rustless body. All the original equipment on it. If you couldn't afford one when you were young, but now you got some money, you can have one. You'd die for something like this. They rust away to pieces in England, but here, no, they don't. You can see. Don't have any rusted. You're not going to find one of those in England, but you can come over to Tennessee and find one. So let's take it for a little spin, see how it goes. Dark tied up, got a cute little sunroof. Let's take it for a spin. Nice stable platform. Got some nice handling with the suspension upgrades. And yes, it is a Ford. It rattles a lot. You're going to hear a lot of rattling on this little vibrating monster. Well, let's see what it can do from a standing start. Not too shabby. Still handles like a dream. This was one well-designed little rocket. Never that popular in the United States, but in England, hey, these things were the bee's knees. Now, certainly not everyone's cup of tea. Not the Americans with their love of coffee, but for an Englishman, hey, this is a car that a lot of them really would enjoy. I listened to it, I just thrashed it, and it's just sitting there purring along. No misfires. It's a little hidden red jewel. You never know what you're going to find these days when you look around. Especially if you're in an area here like in Tennessee or in California where it's nice and dry, cars don't rust. There's a lot of little hidden gems amongst the used car market. To use your noggin and take a little of my advice. And here's some bonus questions and answers. Driver 66729 says, do the Scion TCs with the 2.5 engines have the same oil burning problems as the 2.4 version? No, they don't. Not to my experience. The 2.4s, they're used in tons of engines, Camrys, you saw them in lots of cars, and they do have an oil burning problem. They have piston problems. Toyota's supposed to fix them, but they only did for a certain amount of mileage if they were burning oil. I even had customers have the rings replaced, and then later they burn oil again. They should have just replaced all engines. Of course, they didn't. It cost too much money, but the 2.5s don't. None of the new ones do either. It was kind of a rare thing for Toyota. It was a mistake that they made when they built them. Somehow they screwed up with the piston rings. I don't know. When they designed them, they must have changed something because the previous engines didn't burn oil at all. They were bulletproof, so obviously they made a mistake in either design or engineering or whoever they were getting the piston rings from. But the 2.5s don't really have a problem with that at all. I wouldn't worry about it with one of those engines. But if you're looking at a 2.4, you want to check it, pull out the spark plugs if they're burning carbon or burnt on it, little black parts that are stuck on like rocks. Then don't buy the car. Get something else. Good Scotty says, hello, I bought an '09 Honda Civic. Anybody know common problems? I drove to Kentucky and back to Chicago to see my family. The only issue is my headlights. They work, but they don't light it up. Had to use the brights all the way. Those are great cars. Take care of it. Change the oil every 5,000 miles or so. Now, as for your headlights, if you don't think they light up the road enough, there are various bulbs you can put in there. If you've got stock halogens, you can go to any auto parts store or Amazon, and you can buy the GE bulbs that come in a brighter version. They make brighter ones. Or, if you don't mind, you can put in LEDs, and there are various brightnesses of LEDs that you can throw in. Now, you said Kentucky and back to Chicago to see your family. I'm assuming you're in Kentucky and went to Chicago. There aren't that many rules in Kentucky. You can run whatever headlights you want, basically. You could get brighter ones, and you can get those LEDs. The new ones, when you buy LEDs, it's a kit, and they just plug into where your old one plugged, and they have built-in ballast resistors, and they can get pretty bright if you want. That's the easiest, is LEDs. If you want to just have it converted to LEDs, they just snap in and out. You can watch my videos on it. It's a very simple thing to do, and you'll have as bright headlights as you want, and you won't have to use your high beams, which is technically illegal to use all the time. Jay Porter, 1998, says my 2018 Honda Civic 1.5 turbo is 38,000 miles. How do I flush out the cooling or check it? What you want to do is the radiator has a drain petcock on the bottom. Jack up the car, take the plastic bottom out, you'll see, turn it, that drains it out. You only got 38,000 miles on it. Honda uses a very good coolant that is good for at least 7 years or 100,000 miles. If I were you, I wouldn't waste my time changing it. It's an excellent coolant. It doesn't need changing. It's 7 years or 100,000 miles, and you've only got 38K, and it's only 2 years old. So I'd wait on that. Don't waste your money. Don't throw money away on stuff that doesn't need to be done. Believe me, that's excellent coolant. Back in the day when I was a young mechanic in the 60s, green coolant was only good for 3 years or so. You might want to change it then, but not now. This is very good coolant coolant that Honda uses. Don't wait. Wait until I told you, either 7 years or 100,000 miles. It is good coolant. Hondas do not have coolant-related problems if you change it that often. That's as near as you need to change them. Don't waste your money. 11H93 says, help me, I got air blower. Loud rattling noise on my Honda. I tried to put oil in it. It released white smoke and then didn't work. So I got a new blower motor. I plugged in, it still doesn't run. Help! Never, ever spray oil in electrical systems. You're going to short stuff out. Now you've put a new blower in, but it still doesn't blow. You want to try a few things. First, check the fuse. That oil could have blown the fuse. Fuses are cheap. Could easily be the fuse for the blower motor. There's also a thing called the blower motor resistor assembly. You might have shorted that out. First check the fuse, then check the relay. Get another relay. Often that'll fix it. Now if it's not that, there's also a blower motor relay in the fuse assembly for Hondas, and it could have damaged that. But generally, those are just electromagnetic stuff. They generally don't get damaged by that. Either you blew a fuse or you ate out the resistor. So try the fuse first. You might just find it's a cheap fuse, 50-cent fuse. And you can thank Scotty for saving you a whole bunch of money. Learn a lesson from me. Never spray oil on electrical products. Don't do that. Not a smart thing. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.